Hi and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name is Nikki, I'm an author and editor, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the other things I love. Today we're here to do an author origin tag. So this is an AuthorTube tag, and I will put all the information for the questions and the creator link and everything in the spiel below in case any of you wish to have a go when I get to the end. So we've got 15 to get through, so I'm going to speed right on. Number one, when and where did you start writing? How old were you and which genres did you begin with? I loved books and writing from a very young age, so I can't really recall how old I was when I started writing. In terms of really thinking about sharing my writing with other people though, that will have started in my late teens, early 20s, and I began with fan fiction, as so many people do. Particularly slash fan fiction. From there I wrote my first original novel, which was a story about Robespierre and the French Revolution. It's never been published. It's actually one that every now and again I think maybe I should go back to it. It needs a lot of work, but I do still enjoy the story I told, so I may one day come back and put it out there. But after that I was really in my early to mid 20s when I started writing seriously, particularly mid-20s I'd say, when I started to look at publishing some of my work and have my first short story released. Number two, what was your first main character like? And how have your tastes and muses changed since then? Well, my first main character, as I just mentioned, was Robespierre in terms of an original story. In terms of a published piece, it was a vampire little horror story. I don't think things have changed that much. I mean, I still write some historical, I still definitely write vampires, although I tend to do it from a paranormal romance angle. I don't really write, apart from that one little piece, I don't really write sort of horror thrillers that much. But I don't think there's been a huge amount of change. I'm definitely inspired most by paranormal and fantasy, with historical in there as a secondary source as well. Number three, what's the worst writing advice or feedback you ever received? And what was your first rejection like? In terms of writing rejections, I've actually been very lucky in that I've had only a few. And those that I've had have all told me that they liked the story, it's just not what they were looking for to publish at that time. So I've been really fortunate. I've not had any really scathing rejections, and those I've had have been to do with the genre of the piece rather than the writing itself. As to writing advice and feedback, I mean, I try not to get too tied up in reading reviews. I glance at the odd one, particularly if it's one that I've requested for a blog tour or something like that, but I don't look at them too much. But one I do recall that made me laugh more than anything was that I'd written a story, just a short story that was in an anthology, and it was set in, you know, about the 800s AD. And the reviewer complained that the two men in the story, when they had sex, didn't use a condom. And this just amused me so much because I'm not saying there were no condoms around, but people would definitely not have thought about them for same-sex intercourse. It would have only been a to prevent pregnancy thing for, you know, quite a long way through history. And that's assuming that they used any condoms at all. I don't know if we have any evidence. I'll have to look for the medieval period. I know we do from the Georgian onwards, definitely, Tudor, sorry, onwards. But yeah, so it just made me laugh because they criticised the story and gave it a bad review because they didn't use a condom in Anglo-Saxon England. So number four, what part of writing do you feel is your greatest strength? And it gives me a few things to choose from, such as emotion, drafting, etc. And I think drafting is probably my superpower because my first drafts tend to be fairly close to how the final novel will be. Obviously I do revisions and rewrites, edits, but I don't tend to change anything dramatically. There's no major structural changes on the whole from the first draft. 5. What part of writing or the writing process is your weakest? I'd say plotting, because I am a pantster, and most of the time that works okay, but there are occasions when I think it would have saved me a lot of effort later on if I'd been able to plot things a bit better from the start. Number 6, what strengths and weaknesses changed over the years, and what have you done to better your craft? I don't think my strengths and weaknesses have particularly changed. In terms of improving my craft, I just keep practicing it, keep writing, and particularly keep reading as well, and reading a wide variety of literature. Number 7, what programs have you used in your writing journey, and what is your favourite now? I don't use programs. I've never really gotten into the Scrivener kind of thing, Grammarly, anything like that. I just write by hand, type it up in Word, that's it. Number 8, what is your favourite companion while writing? Probably tea. You can't go wrong with a good cup of tea, says the British girl. I don't particularly have anything else that I have to have by me to write. I usually have a glass of water and or a cup of tea, and that's about it. Number 9, what level of success did you imagine for yourself when you started, and where are you currently heading? I think, you know, everyone when they start writing dreams of becoming the next big name, the next J.K. Rowling, and I think over time you do temper those dreams a little, and you realise that there's so many people out there trying to achieve that, and it's not going to happen for everyone. In fact, it's going to only happen for a lucky few. So you just accept that you're not going to become a household name necessarily, and you just do the best that you can with what you're given. Number 10, which authors helped you realise your interest and passion for writing? Which books shape your genre and style? I'm a huge fan of the classics. I also love Chelsea Kanyabo. She's like my historical hero. And Charlene Harris, I think her humorous style of paranormal has definitely had a little bit of an influence in me on my writing as well. Number 11, how has comparing your author journey to others dismantled or helped your own? I think it's a dangerous thing to start comparing yourself to others, because you're always going to come across the people that are doing better than you. I mean, I've not had any success really with self-publishing. I have a couple of self-published titles out there, but it didn't really work for me. I spent a huge amount of money that I never recouped, and so I've tended to stick more to publishing with small presses. And yet you do see people out there who are making really wonderful sums of money every month on self-publishing through Kindle and the like. It can be discouraging. So I think the point is it's fine to look to others for inspiration, for advice, but don't get so hung up on it that it holds you back because you're so stressed that why aren't you as successful. A lot of it does come down to luck. Next up, looking back on your earliest projects, what genres have you grown to love or hate to write? I don't think this has changed much for me. I definitely concentrate on paranormal fantasy, and I enjoy putting a little bit of historical in there along the way, and I've done that pretty much from the start, and I don't see it changing. Number 13, the most common excuses you've given yourself or outside forces you've overcome that prevent you from writing your story or crush your confidence. I definitely worry at times if it's worth it. I spend a lot of time and effort on my writing for what really is very little return. I mean, I make at the moment of filming this, I make a few $100s a year, maybe 1,000 if I'm lucky for my writing, and yet I spend hours and hours and hours on it, if you also include all the promotion on social media and everything. So that tends to get me down at times, like, is it really worth all this effort I'm putting into it? And I also give myself too much to do online sometimes in terms of doing that promoting, trying to keep my social media going, and that tends to detract from my writing time. I get so worked up in getting blog posts and vlogs and things like that out that I'm not writing. Number 14, when you began, did you consider a pen name? If you use one, why did you use it? I use what's almost my real name for my mainstream MF works, Nicki J. Markus. I actually don't have a J in my name, really, but so that's practically my real name. But I use Asteridonia as my pen name for LGBT, and the reason I did that was simply to differentiate between my MF works and my LGBT works, so that readers know straight up what they're getting when they see one of my books. And finally, tag a few people to do the tag on their channel. I'm not going to name any names, but obviously if you want to do it, all the details are below as I mentioned, so do give it a go. I'll end there, but I'll be back again very soon with another vlog for you. Bye for now, everyone.